The burden of choice. Friedrich Nietzsche understood something that most people refuse to face. We are terrified of freedom, not the abstract freedom we claim to want, not the political liberty we say we cherish, but the existential freedom that confronts us when we realize that no one is coming to save us, that there is no cosmic plan, that we must create our own meaning in a meaningless universe. This freedom is not liberation but burden, not gift but curse, not opportunity but responsibility so vast that most people flee from it into comfortable chains. We speak of wanting freedom while constructing elaborate prisons for ourselves. We claim to desire autonomy while desperately seeking authorities to obey. We say we want to be ourselves while conforming to every social expectation, while living according to what Nietzsche called the herd morality, while carefully ensuring we never stand too far apart from the crowd. This is not hypocrisy. This is the human condition. We are, in Nietzsche's terms, human, all too human, creatures who crave the very chains we claim to despise. The question Nietzsche forces us to confront is brutal. Why do we fear the freedom we claim to want? Why do we flee from the responsibility of creating our own values? Why do we choose the comfortable slavery of conformity over the terrifying liberty of becoming who we actually are? The answer reveals something fundamental about human psychology, about our need for certainty, our terror of responsibility, our desperate desire for someone else to tell us how to live. This is Nietzsche's challenge to humanity, and most of us fail it. The nature of freedom, Nietzsche's vision. For Nietzsche, freedom is not the absence of constraint, but the presence of will, the capacity to create one's own values, to determine one's own direction, to become who one is rather than what others expect. True freedom is terrifying because it means we are alone, absolutely alone, with the responsibility of making ourselves. There is no God to provide moral guidance, no eternal truth to discover, no predetermined essence to fulfill. There is only us, standing in the void, forced to create meaning where none exists. This is what Nietzsche meant when he proclaimed that God is dead. He was not celebrating atheism as liberation. He was diagnosing a crisis. If God is dead, if there are no eternal values written into the fabric of the universe, then we must become our own creators, must generate our own values, must bear the full weight of existence without the comfort of divine purpose or cosmic plan. Most people, Nietzsche observed, have not yet grasped what this means, have not yet faced the implications of living in a world without transcendent meaning. Freedom, in Nietzsche's vision, is the prerogative of the strong, of what he called the higher humans, those capable of bearing the weight of self-creation, of living without the crutches of conventional morality and religious consolation. The free person does not ask what is good according to society or religion. They ask what enhances life, what increases power, what enables becoming. They create their own good and evil rather than discovering them in some external authority. But this freedom requires tremendous strength. It requires what Nietzsche called the will to power. Not power over others, but power over oneself. The capacity to master one's own impulses, to direct one's own becoming, to create oneself as a work of art. Most people lack this strength. They prefer to be told what to value, what to pursue, how to live. They prefer the slavery of conformity to the freedom of self-creation, because slavery is easier, because it removes the burden of choice, because it allows them to blame others when life does not satisfy. Nietzsche saw clearly that democracy, Christianity, socialism, all the mass movements of his time were flights from freedom, ways of avoiding the responsibility of individual becoming by submerging oneself in collective identity, by following rules created by others, by living according to values one did not choose. These movements promised liberation but delivered a more insidious form of slavery, the slavery of those who have renounced the right to create themselves and instead accept whatever the herd declares to be good. True freedom, for Nietzsche, is rare and dangerous. It is the freedom of those who have overcome themselves, who have broken free from the need for external validation, who can stand alone without needing the approval of the crowd. And most people, confronted with this freedom, recoil in terror. The comfort of chains. Why we choose bondage. Nietzsche understood that humans are not naturally drawn to freedom but to security, not to autonomy but to belonging, not to creating their own values but to following established ones. We are herd animals by nature, shaped by evolution to survive in groups, to conform to social norms, to value acceptance over authenticity. The person who stands apart from the herd risks exclusion, and for most of human history, exclusion meant death. This evolutionary inheritance creates a profound psychological conflict. We inherit the capacity for individual consciousness, for questioning, for creating our own values, but we also inherit the desperate need to belong, to be accepted, to conform to group norms. Most people resolve this conflict by choosing belonging over becoming, by sacrificing authenticity for acceptance, by living according to what Nietzsche called slave morality, rather than daring to create their own values. Slave morality, for Nietzsche, is the morality of the weak, of those who lack the strength to stand alone, who need rules and authorities and collective approval. It is the morality that makes virtues of weakness, humility, obedience, self-denial, equality, pity. These values serve the herd by keeping everyone at the same level, by punishing those who rise above, by ensuring that no one becomes too different, too strong, too free. But slave morality also provides comfort. It tells us we are good simply by following the rules, by being like everyone else, by suppressing our individual will in service of collective norms. We do not have to create our own meaning, because meaning is provided. We do not have to bear responsibility for our choices, because we are simply obeying what is right. We do not have to face the terror of freedom, because we have surrendered it in exchange for the security of knowing our place. This is why most people choose chains. The chains provide structure, provide certainty, provide a ready-made identity and purpose. The free person must create all of this from nothing, must bear the anxiety of not knowing whether their choices are right, must live with the possibility that their life's meaning is something they invented, rather than something they discovered. This is unbearable for most people. Nietzsche saw this clearly in religion, which offers the ultimate escape from freedom. God tells you what is good, what is evil, what your purpose is, where you are going after death. You need only obey. You need only submit. You need only follow the commandments, and you will be saved. Religion is the supreme consolation for those who cannot bear the weight of creating their own values, who need to believe that meaning exists independent of human creation. But even as traditional religion declines, Nietzsche warned, new forms of herd thinking emerge to fill the void. People find new authorities to obey, new ideologies to follow, new ways of escaping the burden of individual freedom. The herd and the last man, escaping individuality. Nietzsche's concept of the herd is not merely descriptive, but prophetic. He saw emerging in modern society a type of human who had perfected the art of avoiding freedom, who had created a comfortable, safe, mediocre existence that required no greatness, no risk, no individual becoming. He called this type the last man, and he considered it the greatest threat to human potential. The last man is the person who has given up on becoming anything exceptional, who seeks only comfort and security, who wants life to be as easy and painless as possible. The last man invented happiness, Nietzsche wrote with contempt. A small happiness of small pleasures and small pains, a life carefully arranged to avoid anything challenging or difficult or great. The last man blinks and says, "What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star?" and blinks again. The herd produces last men by punishing anyone who stands out, who wants something more than comfort, who dares to be different. Through gossip, through social pressure, through the enforcement of norms, the herd ensures that everyone remains at the same level, that no one rises above the collective mediocrity. Excellence becomes suspect, Ambition becomes greed. The desire to be exceptional becomes vanity. Everything that makes humans potentially great is redefined as vice. Modern democracy, Nietzsche argued, is the political expression of herd morality. It is based on the principle that everyone is equal, that no one should rise above others, that the majority should determine values. This sounds noble, but Nietzsche saw it as the tyranny of mediocrity, the rule of those who cannot tolerate greatness in others because it reminds them of their own smallness. The escape into the herd is also an escape from individuality itself. To be an individual is to be alone, to bear responsibility for one's choices, to create one's own meaning. But in the herd, one can dissolve into the collective, can think what everyone thinks, value what everyone values, live as everyone lives. The burden of selfhood is lifted. One becomes simply a member of the group, following the path that has been laid out, never having to face the terrifying question: who am I when I am not simply what others expect me to be? Nietzsche saw that even rebellion can be a form of herd thinking. The person who defines themselves entirely in opposition to conventional values, who rebels for the sake of rebellion, who makes their identity out of not being like others. This person is still determined by the herd, still defining themselves in relation to it, rather than creating values that are genuinely their own. True freedom requires leaving the herd entirely, not in the sense of physical isolation, but in the sense of psychological independence. Thinking one's own thoughts, creating one's own values, becoming oneself regardless of what the collective approves or condemns. And this, most people cannot bear. Freedom and responsibility, the unbearable weight. Nietzsche understood that freedom and responsibility are inseparable, that the moment we claim freedom to create our own values, we also accept total responsibility for who we become. This is what makes freedom unbearable. We can no longer blame God, fate, society, our parents, our circumstances. We stand alone, absolutely responsible for our choices, for our becoming, for the meaning we create or fail to create. This responsibility is crushing. It means that if our life is meaningless, we made it so. If we are unhappy, we chose it. If we fail to become who we might have been, we cannot point to external forces that prevented us. The excuses that make life tolerable, that allow us to maintain self-respect despite our failures, these excuses dissolve in the face of radical freedom. We are what we have made ourselves, nothing more and nothing less. Most people flee from this responsibility into what Nietzsche called resentment, a poisonous mixture of envy, resentment, and moral judgment. Unable to bear the weight of their own freedom, unable to create values that would make their lives meaningful, they turn their failure into a virtue. They declare that suffering is noble, that weakness is good, that those who succeed are evil. They make a morality out of their inability to become, transforming their failure into righteousness. This is the psychology of slave morality, the morality of those who cannot bear responsibility for their own becoming, and so must make their powerlessness into a virtue. They cannot create, so they declare creation to be vanity. They cannot achieve greatness, so they declare greatness to be sin. They cannot stand alone, so they declare independence to be selfishness. Every value of the strong, of the free, of those who create themselves is inverted and condemned. But this inversion does not eliminate the burden. It simply redirects it into judgment of others, into moral condemnation, into the satisfaction of bringing down anyone who dares to rise above the herd. The person consumed by resentment cannot create positive values, can only negate what others create, can only find meaning in tearing down what they cannot build. Nietzsche saw clearly that Christianity perfected this psychology, creating a morality that made virtue out of weakness, that promised the meek would inherit the earth, that turned suffering into salvation. This provided comfort for those who could not bear the responsibility of freedom, who needed to believe that their powerlessness was actually nobility, that their failure to become was actually holiness. The free person, by contrast, accepts responsibility absolutely. They do not blame, do not resent, do not make their weakness into a virtue. They acknowledge that they are the authors of their lives, that the meaning or meaninglessness of their existence is their creation. This acceptance is rare because it is difficult, because it offers no consolation, because it places the entire burden of being on our own shoulders, beyond good and evil. The terror of self-creation. Nietzsche's most radical claim is that good and evil are not discovered but created, not eternal truths but human inventions, not facts about the universe but expressions of will to power. This means that when we are truly free, we do not find out what is good, we decide what is good. We create values rather than discovering them. And this creative power is what terrifies most people more than anything else. To create one's own values is to stand beyond good and evil, beyond the comfortable certainty of moral absolutes, beyond the security of knowing what is right. It means recognizing that the values we inherited, the morality we were taught, the distinction between good and evil that seems so obvious, all of this is human creation, could have been otherwise, could be changed or discarded entirely. This recognition creates vertigo. If good and evil are not written into the fabric of reality, if they are simply human interpretations, human valuations, then what prevents us from valuing anything, from calling anything good? What prevents the descent into nihilism, into the belief that nothing matters, that all values are equally arbitrary, that there is no reason to choose one path over another? Most people cannot tolerate this vertigo. They need to believe that some things are simply wrong, that murder is not just socially discouraged but cosmically evil, that kindness is not just useful but objectively good. They need moral absolutes because without them, they feel unmoored, lost in a universe without meaning or direction. The thought that they must create their own meaning, must generate their own values, must decide for themselves what is worthy of pursuit, this is too much to bear. So they flee back into conventional morality, into the comfortable belief that good and evil are real, that someone or something has determined what is right, that they need only discover and obey rather than create. They choose the slavery of moral certainty over the freedom of self-creation, because certainty provides what freedom cannot. The assurance that one is right, that one's life has objective meaning, that one's choices align with cosmic truth. But Nietzsche insists that this flight is cowardice, that true nobility requires bearing the burden of creation, requires accepting that we are the source of values rather than their discoverer. The Übermensch, the overman, the higher human Nietzsche envisions, is precisely the one who can create values without needing them to be eternal, who can say this is good because I will it to be good, not because God commanded it, or nature dictated it, or society agreed upon it. This creative freedom is what humanity both needs and fears. We need it because without it, we remain children, forever dependent on authorities to tell us how to live. We fear it because it means we are alone, absolutely alone, with the responsibility of making meaning in a meaningless universe. And most people, faced with this responsibility, choose instead to remain children, embracing freedom, becoming who you are. Nietzsche's challenge to humanity is encapsulated in his famous imperative, become who you are. This sounds paradoxical. How can we become what we already are? But Nietzsche means that we are not yet what we might be, that we exist as possibility rather than actuality, that our true self is something we must create through our choices rather than something we discover fully formed. Becoming who you are requires rejecting what others have decided you should be. It means questioning every inherited value, every social expectation, every moral commandment that was given to you rather than created by you. This does not mean becoming immoral or rejecting all traditional values. It means examining them, testing them against life, keeping only what enhances your becoming and discarding what diminishes it. This process demands what Nietzsche called self-overcoming, the continuous surpassing of who you have been, the refusal to settle into any fixed identity, the willingness to destroy your current self, to make space for who you might become. The person who has become who they are is not finished, but perpetually in process, perpetually creating themselves anew, perpetually willing to sacrifice comfort for growth. Nietzsche offers no comfort, no reassurance, no promise that this path will lead to happiness. He promises only that it will lead to greatness, to living at the heights of human possibility, to creating something worthy of this brief existence. The free person may not be happy in the way the last man is happy, may not be comfortable or secure or accepted by the herd, but they will be alive in a way that those who flee freedom can never be. The fear of freedom is understandable. Freedom is burden, is responsibility, is the terrifying recognition that we are alone in creating meaning. But the alternative, Nietzsche shows us, is worse. The alternative is living as the herd lives, believing what everyone believes, valuing what everyone values, becoming nothing more than a copy of a copy, a last man blinking in contentment, while life's greatest possibilities pass unrealized. Embracing freedom means embracing this burden. It means accepting that no one is coming to save us, that there is no cosmic plan, that we must create our own values in a valueless universe. It means standing alone when necessary, thinking thoughts that contradict the herd, pursuing becoming rather than belonging. It means choosing the difficult path of self-creation over the easy path of conformity. This is Nietzsche's vision of human greatness, not conformity to moral absolutes, not obedience to divine commands, not the pursuit of comfort and security, but the courage to create oneself, to stand alone, to bear the weight of freedom without fleeing into the comforting chains that most people prefer. Few will choose this path, but those who do will discover what it means to truly live. Conclusion: Nietzsche's diagnosis of why people fear freedom cuts to the heart of human psychology. We fear freedom because it places the entire burden of existence on our shoulders, because it means we cannot blame anyone else for who we become, because it requires us to create meaning in a universe that offers none. The comfortable chains of convention, of moral certainty, of herd thinking, these offer what freedom cannot: the illusion that someone else is responsible, that our lives have predetermined meaning, that we are right because we conform. But this comfort comes at a devastating cost. We sacrifice our potential, our authenticity, our possibility of greatness. We become last men, content with small pleasures and small pains, never daring to become what we might be, never creating the values that would make our existence meaningful, never standing alone in our truth. Nietzsche's challenge remains: will we have the courage to embrace freedom, to become who we are, to create our own values, and bear the responsibility that comes with this creation? Or will we choose the comfort of chains, the security of following, the ease of being like everyone else? Most people, Nietzsche knew, will choose chains. They will flee from freedom into ideology, into religion, into the herd. They will make virtues of their weaknesses and condemn as vices the strengths they lack. They will live and die without ever facing the terrifying and liberating truth that they were free, that they could have created themselves, that no one and nothing prevented them except their own fear. But for those few who can bear the weight, who can embrace the responsibility, who can create themselves without needing cosmic validation, Nietzsche offers a vision of human greatness that makes all the suffering worthwhile. Not happiness, not comfort, not security, but the nobility of living as a creator, as one who determines their own values, as one who becomes what they are rather than what others expect. The question is not whether freedom is frightening. It is. The question is whether we will let that fear determine our lives, whether we will choose the slavery of comfort over the difficulty of becoming, whether we will die having never truly lived because we were too afraid to stand alone. Nietzsche's answer is clear. Most will choose fear, but a few, the higher humans, those capable of bearing the weight, will choose freedom. And in that choice, they will discover what it means to be fully human, fully alive, fully themselves. This is Nietzsche's challenge to you. If Nietzsche's challenge has disturbed you, if you recognize yourself fleeing from freedom into comfortable conformity, then you have begun the work of self-examination. The question is whether you will continue. Subscribe to this channel for content that explores the depths of existential philosophy without offering easy answers, that honors the difficulty of authentic living, that challenges you to think beyond the herd. Share this with someone ready to face these questions, someone who might be strong enough to embrace the burden of freedom. Leave a comment sharing your reflections on freedom and fear, on the ways you recognize yourself choosing chains, on the courage required to create your own values. This community exists for those willing to question everything, to stand alone when necessary, to become who they are rather than what others expect. Remember, you are free, more free than you dare to acknowledge. The chains you wear are chains you chose. The values you follow are values you accepted rather than created. The life you live is the life you are making, moment by moment, choice by choice. This freedom is terrifying, but it is also the only path to greatness, to authenticity, to becoming who you actually are. Nietzsche's question stands: will you have the courage to be free?